Welcome back to Moving Forward. And unfortunately, time on this program is moving forward too quickly. So we must expedite our comments because there's so much to be said. Just before the break, we were talking about women now going just beyond the safety of their own personal interests and their own environment into the community, the wider community. It represents a risk, we know, but shouldn't we be taking that risk as women and as citizens?
I think so. I feel that based on what is happening in our communities and our country now at large, it is imperative that we start to do that kind of thing. And you know, Bahamians have this thing about minding their own business. But in a community or where, especially in areas where children are, instinctively I think women and mothers by extension, right, would notice what's happening to children. I think it's just an innate thing where you would be concerned if you're in an area, say you're at a mall, and you see children moving around. I always look at other people's children, and if a young child is moving and you don't see that parent near or close enough, you know, you start to get concerned automatically. And I think that same level of sentiment or concern should, by extension, be utilized, like you're saying, Reverend Moss, in a more functional way, in a more organized way, to impact the levels of whatever we want to call it, deviant behavior or dysfunction or whatever is in our communities, especially when it pertains to the younger women, the teenage mother, who may not have the values, the standard, or the experience that an older woman could lend. And so I think, you know, that's not intruding, but that is being of assistance to ensure that we put something back into our communities and into our people.
Well, sometimes I think students think I'm insane because I would quite boldly ask if I see you out of school or going in a different direction from the school you should be going. Or where you going? Or why are you here and you're not in school?
Exactly.
You know, and they look at it and say, what's wrong with her? But I say, but then you're going in a different direction. Because sometimes you need to say something to them to let them know that somebody's watching.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to move away what I call is bystander behavior, where you stand on the side and watch and look and say, oh, I can't get involved because somebody's going to be upset with me or somebody. We all have to get involved. Right. But I would just say, I like what you're doing with the boys, but I think it's very important that boys have access to men. You know, that's very important because so many of our boys grow up in homes where there's just women. Like the teacher is a woman, sometimes the pastor is a woman, you know, and so it's so important for us to bring men involved in these activities for boys.
Well, this program actually is dominated by men as presenters. The women would ensure the snacks are prepared and that sort of stuff, but we bring men from a broad cross-section of the community. We call our Rotary Brothers, you know, these are professional men who have achieved a lot over a broad spectrum of the society. And we bring the men in for the boys and we bring women in for the girls. Because we also teach them how to behave amongst the other sex, the opposite sex. A lot of them don't even know, because they're only living out what they experience in their environment.
And what they're exposed to.
And that's what I'm saying.
If you look at the television, you see the Bad Girls Club
That's
and
right.
you know, hip-hop this and all these negative behaviors and thinking and dressing, and we have to counter it.
That's right. Well, that's what we're doing right now.
Our children don't have alternative positive messages. They're just getting it from this television and lyrics from music, and so it's so important to counter that. So that's wonderful that you're doing this.
Oh yeah, and this is going to grow once we increase our resources, and we are calling upon anyone who is able to assist by way of finance or even snacks, or give us a good pool of volunteers to draw from. The presenters are not much of a problem. The problem is in the administration
support
and the
system.
support, because the men are very. We had Wednesday past. We had Mr. Fred Lowe. He's a local businessman, and he just rests his business down, and he is delighted to do it.
Excellent.
And the kids just loved it. So we are hoping to expand this, but it has to be expanded in a way that is sustainable, because we do not want it to falter as it did the last time. We need people to coordinate the presenters, and if somebody runs into a problem and cannot appear, we need them to be able to quickly grab somebody else and bring them there, so the kids are never disappointed, because you know kids are turned off quite quickly if they think you're not serious. But the other area we're talking about now, let's move to the area of those youngsters who are actively engaged in criminal behavior now. They're full-blown criminals. Pig grow to hog now. Pig now grow to hog. We were talking about pigs all along in the home, in the schools, and so forth. But the pig is now a hog in the home. What kind of action should women in general take? Either, one, not condoning, not encouraging, but also trying to instill discipline. We have mothers with grown sons in the home, don't work, living high, living large, and the mothers sometimes appear to condone that. What do we say to their mothers?
Well, I think the discipline starts from young.
Yes.
That discipline has to start from young. You cannot just expect to discipline your child when he's a teenager.
Yes, but
because
the
he's
pig
not
is a
going to
hog.
listen.
But the pig is a hog. If he does not listen, then what? Do you call the authorities? Do you insist that he leave the home? And how do you handle that? That's what we need to get our women now sort of committed to. What do you do?
But like you mentioned earlier, some of these people are actually maintaining the homes financially.
Yes.
So that's another instance. And on the other hand, sometimes some of our women need to know how mentally to cope with what's happening around her. And that's again where, as little as it may seem, the crisis center may come in, because she herself may be going through this and needs some counseling or some support as to which direction should I take. What should I do? What's the best thing for me to do? I don't want to send him to prison. I don't want to condone him. So our women sometimes need know that they have a support system whereby I can go and sit and talk with someone who can take me through the steps of how I should cope with this situation.
So I think, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think that you have to have persons that you can rely on, reliable persons, because most often some parents or a woman would want, she'll be the last one to give up on the child.
Yes.
The last.
Yes.
Yes.
And she's hoping,
Yes.
she's, praying, she's working. So I think it's important to reach out, like you say, reach out to someone who has the authority, who's an authority figure, and maybe before you turn the person into the authorities, maybe there's someone who has a background in law enforcement, or someone who is respected by that child, even though he may have strayed away, and have that person come and speak to the child, or a relative who can come in and sit the child down, or that young person down, and speak to them and let them know what the realities are. Because sometimes when young people, I feel, are engaged in criminal activity, they persist once they've not been caught or do not realize what the outcome of their behavior really is. Because you'd see them in prison. I mean, not persons that are hardened criminals, but they would be very remorseful, regretful of the way they have allowed themselves to go in their life. So I think that getting assistance, having people intervene, and then and certainly coming to a conclusion that you cannot live in my house. I am not going to tolerate it. And then they'd realize, now either you can live somewhere else, but certainly this is not going to happen where I live. Because now look at what the law does. If you're found with guns or anything, everyone gets locked up. Everyone is arrested in the house. So I would not, harbor someone in my home who is perpetrating or doing things that I'm aware of. And then this thing of them supporting the family, giving, financially, you should, parents, or that's very wrong.
It's common.
Because you're hurting yourself, you're hurting that person even more. And so I think it's very important for parents not to accept anything that they know has not been gotten legitimately. I don't want to accept that.
Well, that's easier said than done, because unless you have been in a position where you need financial support desperately, sometimes people tend to turn a blind eye to the source. I feel that that's where help is needed at the community level. We have, as a part of our administrative operation, a counseling center that used to be functioning, but again, when we lost the director, the voluntary director, that sort of went down also. But people need to know there's a place they can go. While we never possessed the professional abilities to help these people, but we knew where to refer them. And there was a direct telephone line. If you're hurting, if you are stressed, whatever the reason, you're having problems with the child, you call. And we would then forward them on to usually the Department of Social Services because they need material assistance largely. And then they would forward them to psychiatric or help or spiritual help we provide. But whatever help they need, and people need to know that it's there. And we operate that, and now that the office, the administrative office located at Yoruba House is functioning again, people can call and just get that help. And that's critical.
Can they also get monetary help, or
yes,
anyway, with
material? Well, not so much money.
Not money, but can
material
they
help,
get
yes.
material help?
Yes. Oh yes, material help.
So that dependence on that child or that person.
Believe they get help. We have furniture. That anything that's donated to us, we have a large supply of very usable double windows, 12 panes. We've got as many of them as anyone would need. They just come and get. And beddings, clothing, whatever. Because people need to know there's a source of help that they can turn to. It gives them a sense of confidence. They're anchored because somebody's there to help them. And if we cannot help you personally, we direct you to someone. But the Women Against Crime now are going to provide a lot of that undergirding that is necessary, keeping the place open.
Well, I hope that Women Against Crime are also going to be advocating and pushing for there to be more family courts. After all these years, we still only have one family court. So many of these women who need their children maintained, need their children supported, have to wait months before they can get before the family court and have child support payments. So that's a very real issue, and we need women to be speaking up about it, you know? Yes. Women will go to that court and, there's nothing here for you, and then the case is adjourned for 2 months or 3 months, or for a warrant of arrest to be issued, and nothing ever happens. So there's some systems in place, other than the monetary help or referral to whatever. There's some systems in place that we need. So that, some advocacy for these women, so that they can not feel dependent, they can not feel ashamed, that they can come forward. Because I always say a child has a right to be maintained by both parents, not just the mother.
That's right.
You carry it because you have to, but both parents need to maintain the children. And we need more advocacy to get that family court increased, or another one set up, so that you don't have to wait 3 months to have your child maintained. That's very important.
That's the other aspect of Women Against Crime. We are trying to develop a strong advocacy group because women are very, very effective at activism, very effective. And we model this after the women in white in Cuba. In Cuba, because anyone who speaks out against the regime, they are incarcerated. But watch the women in white. They're the only ones who can march, and even if they are restricted in certain areas, they are not harmed like men. Listen, if a group of men were to go downtown Havana in opposition to any of the administration's policy, they would be lost in jail. They don't do that to women. We feel the same thing here. If you had 200 men down in Rawson Square advocating for or against something, the first thing you want to do is call a riot squad. but you send 200 women. See, that's the influence of women. They're not going to handle women using the same procedures and the same attitude that they use men. So we have been saying to our women, there are certain things, particularly that affects women and their interests, that you need to speak up about, and that's one. That's one, but that aspect takes a little more time. You see, people are accustomed to doing with their hands what they normally do, but it takes a little while for them to now decide to stand up for something, especially publicly, because Bahamians are not very demonstrative people in the first place. You call a rally and they're little. Well, you remember where you had a march.
Yes, take back the night.
Take back the night that I was on.
Yes,
and I fully expected to see a huge,
to see hundreds of people, right?
Hundreds of people,
and all the problems we have in this country.
And they're a handful. And so, you know, we have to encourage our women to become better advocates for their own, because they sometimes feel, well, you know, we don't want to do this. We'll just accept and adjust and accommodate ourselves. You shouldn't accommodate yourself to anything that's against your best interest.
Exactly.
And so we'll get there. As a matter of fact, so enamored we are about the women in white in Cuba that that's their uniform. They were white. They were white.
But you know, I think too, in certain areas, you need more intervention, even for women in relationships, like to have a forum where sometimes they can speak, because the situation sometimes start with the difficulties that they come into in relationships. And then you have a breakdown in the authority base, and then you have, you know, such a struggle going on for the children. The children, by extension, are adversely affected. So, you know, it'd be nice to have intervention before people get to the point of domestic violence, for instance, because the violence in the home is a great problem for many people.
Well, ladies, this hour seems to have gone so quickly. We have to consider changing the name of this program from Moving Forward, because this time moved forward much too quickly, because we've been instructed that we have to wrap up now. And so just a brief comment from each of you before we bring this program to a close.
Well, I'd just like to say I'm very happy to have been a part of the discussion, and certainly the work that's being done in Bain and Grantstown through your Women Against Crime. Interesting, eh? I think the women are competent.
Yes.
And not in a threatening way at all. I think women have a lot to contribute. And I'd like to see more women be involved and get out there and become active, as some of us are. And I talk on the show, so that's as active as I am at the moment. But nonetheless, I think when we engage, we share, and people pick up ideas and new concepts of how to deal with issues.
Yeah.
Dr. Patterson?
I look forward to working with your group. I think it has fantastic potential. I think it's important that we work together, men and women, and all the communities. And I think you're on a good wicket.
I think so, and we are so grateful for your support. You were at the service that launched Women Against Crime. You offered your assistance then, and you're repeating it now, and we are so grateful for that. You will be hearing from us a lot, because you have so much to offer, your insights, your experience. And we don't worry, you know, that people may feel threatened. Our job is to do what is right and do what is good, and at the same time allay any concerns they may have. Our women are by and large a tremendous asset to this country, and we should use them I mean, that word use is positive. We should utilize them to bring about the best that we can for this country. And finally, our president.
Well, I am so happy to have met Ms. Sands. I've met Dr. Patterson, and I look forward to working with you both, especially Dr. Patterson, on the advocacy aspect. I'm talking about more courts for our domestic courts for our women, and that's something we definitely need.
Well, we did not have time to go into our anti-crime program that we had recently launched, but on another show. But I'm so grateful to you ladies for accepting the invitation to come and just share your views. I'm sure our viewers benefited greatly from your comments. We're going to have you back again real soon. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, folks, you've been watching Moving Forward, the program that seeks not just to shine a light on